We're live. Welcome. Hi, guys. Lovely to see you again. I just love it when we get together these Tuesday mornings. Have our little coffee. Everybody got their coffee, tea. Mine's tea. I always, for some reason, coffee's easier to say. Oh, you're
water.
Boring. Well, I made my tea with really good water.
There you go.
But it's like, I don't know. I need a flavor in the mornings. But sometimes, if I'm in a rush, I'll get up and I won't drink it. So it's not like I have to have it. It's just kind of a nice enjoyment.
It's a good way to start the day.
Yeah. So it's pretty beautiful here. Oh my gosh, yesterday was fabulous. I think it must have been, did it hit 70 yesterday? I think it was really so beautiful, and the wind was not blowing. So how are y'all there? Looks like you had a good day yesterday in Kansas City.
We hit the 60s. Yeah, we were mid 60s, which is wonderful too. It still had that cool wind thing going on. It wasn't real bad, but we hit 60, so that's good. All the snow's gone.
It is. Yeah, Alicia did a FaceTime with me, and Henry had his little kitchen set out on the deck, and they were playing outside. So that's always a good thing.
Good sign.
So all these boys in our family, Bill is a cook. He cooks now. He cooks almost everything now. And my son does, and her husband is, Alicia's husband is, and now the boys are learning that. We're preparing those boys for their future wives.
Well trained.
Exactly. So who do we have out with us? Do we have anyone out there this morning that wants to say hello and check in? I'm going to make sure our box is working here and close this other little thing. Do my, there we go. Let's see. All right. So we know the box is working. So what's going on with you guys? We'll start our topic in a minute, but what's your main thing you're focusing on this week, Miss Laura?
I have garden bed people. I have consultations. So I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I'm trying to get, I go in and do a consultation, or I do a virtual online consultation, and then I do a proposal, and the proposals take a couple of hours. I'm on the learning curve. I finally found some software where I can actually do landscaping, garden beds without, a lot of them are CAD based, and I'm just like, I just don't want to learn.
I just stumbled on one. I'll have to send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say I found one that's called Garden Planner. It's super simple, but I will look. But yeah, I've been doing that, so it just takes time. So that's been happening. And then I'm getting ready for being virtual teacher, and then a virtual design, garden design with the company that I got my certification from. So I've got a lot going.
Oh, wow.
That's my own business. I'm behind on my blog posts and,
It's only March, right?
That's only March. Yeah, we're right at the, So yeah, I'm pushing hard. I'm putting in probably 10, 12-hour days, just trying to get stuff caught up and done.
Wow.
So
yeah. Let me ask just a quick question, and maybe one day we'll just let you do the whole little segment. Not let you, but we'll have you do that.
You let me. Thank you.
Not let. I never have really liked that expression. So just in general, so if somebody wants a garden, do they take a picture of their backyard and you tell them where to plant it? Or are these above ground things? Are they going to plant them in the ground?
I do both, but my main focus really is on raised garden beds.
Raised garden. Okay.
Yeah, they're just easier. You don't have to fool with the soil. You don't have to.
I was going to say, you have a little more control that way.
There's a lot more control. Yeah. And once it's together, it's set and ready to go. I mean, or as we say, set and ready to grow. So yeah, I actually had a consult yesterday, and it was in the ground garden, but usually it's raised beds.
Oh,
so
cool.
Yeah.
My listeners need to know that. And you, Lisa, what do you focus on? I know you also have like all these plates in the air as well. What's your main one this week? What's happening?
What's my main plate? Well, it's gardening time. So yeah, I'm getting out my seedlings right now. And then I'm focusing on, building the academy that I'm building. So other than that,
yeah, and that's a pretty big project.
Other than that, it's a big project. Yeah.
As well as I know you're always working with your authors on getting their books ready and all that. And matter of fact, you and I are getting ready to do a new cover, do a reprint with a new cover on my book, which we'll be making that change pretty soon. So pretty fun. Hi, Emma Lou. How are you this morning? And Karen, hi, girl. Nice to see you guys on. So this morning, our topic is ask. And one of my favorite phrases, if you don't ask, they can't say yes. We're always so worried about getting no's that often we don't ask the question. But there's a lot of directions that we can go with thinking about asking. And I think what brought it to mind is that I have someone in my family who just finds it really hard to reach out. And through the years, she'll say to me, well, back, a couple, when you get into those real intimate conversations, and she'll say, well, I really wish you would have helped me do this or that, a couple of years ago. And I said, well, how? I didn't even know you needed that. How was I supposed to know? And she said, well, I thought you would just know. And I said, well, no, I didn't just know. So, when we need help or we need an answer, it's really important that we ask. And even if the person says no, at least we know we've put it out there on the table. But so often, in this case with my family member, I would do anything for her to help her if I knew what she needed. But she's very independent, like many of us are. And I have to say, I have to be careful of that myself. It's a little bit harder now. Not with Lisa. I always ask Lisa because I'm, things that she helps me with. But, some of those things sometimes in your family that you keep really close, I don't always let that out, although I've done better over the last few years. Sometimes as women, we think, we're so strong, we can handle it all, right? So what do you think about that, guys? Do you think we should ask a little more often for what we want?
I think that the more familiar we are sometimes with people, the harder it is to ask, and if we haven't developed that from the very get-go. And so, when we're approaching something that's difficult like that, we might have just a frank conversation and say, how do you feel about me asking you this? And then maybe just have a discussion about it. I know that's an ask right there, but sometimes the hardest people to approach are the ones that we are familial with, in the sense that we've developed a certain pattern of relationship. And so if you're breaking that pattern, it can be very uncomfortable and scary. And so sometimes you just approach it with trying to be frank for a moment and asking them what they think.
Good. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't really thought about that. That's true. How about you, Laura? What do you think about that?
Well, with the whole asking piece, for me, a lot of times, and like Lisa said, the people that you're the most familiar with, whether it's family or close friends, it's like, their habits, their lifestyle, and you're like, you just assume, well, I don't know if they'll be able to, you get this story in your head, or at least I do. I shouldn't say you, but
no, you're right.
And it's like, well, I'll ask that person last. I'll go through my network and see if I can get some help, because I know so and so is busy. It's always that assumption, and that actually for me prevents me from asking more than I should. And I've always been just I'm impatient more often, so I don't ask. It's easier to get it done. Of course, I'll say it my way.
Wow. So we were talking about that control thing.
Yeah, a lot of confession here. I didn't realize I was going to walk into my own confession, but that's kind of my take on the whole asking piece.
Yeah, good thoughts. Now we have I'm Facebook not sure how to say the name. Trishelle, did I get it close? Good morning. And she says Grand Rising. That's cool. I haven't ever heard good mornings said like that before. That is cool. We have someone showing as Facebook user, and you have to give us permission or give the platform permission. So if you see that link and just click that, we'll know who you are, or you can identify yourself. But good morning to you. Yes. So I think you're right. It's kind of that. And I think part of that is judgment.
Mhm.
We're sometimes hesitant to ask the question or ask for that help because we feel they're going to judge us, so if you're asking for help in a certain area, well, you don't really need that, or why do you want that? And then they get too sometimes get a little too involved in my life. It's like, so I'm going to ask you the thing, and if they can help, great, and if they can't, I get it, but don't judge me in the meantime. So again, that's my story in my head, so that may not always be true, but sometimes I feel that. Or we base it on past behaviors that, whenever you ask this certain person, that's sort of always their reaction. So then I get less hesitant to ask that.
No, I think Laura came on something really important there, which was that we make assumptions before we ask.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm guilty of that 1,000 times over with my husband and with other people. I think, oh, they're too busy, or oh, they're not interested, or they won't like this, and then I ask later down the road, and well, why didn't you just ask me sooner? And I'm like, well, because you were thinking this. I was not thinking that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and then when I sometimes ask, it's like, could you do this? But if you don't have the time, or if you don't, it's okay. I'll find somebody else. It's that you don't really come out and ask. You're like dancing all around it.
The prenuptial. Yeah.
Yeah, prenuptial. There you go. That's a good way to put it.
And I think sometimes too, people want to. I think there's, those that are around us that love us, they do want to, and this could, we're talking about any kind of ask. This could just be ask as a favor for something easy in life, or ask, or something serious if you're in financial issues, whatever it is. It doesn't matter the scope of what it is that you're asking about. But sometimes we want to help, but we don't know how to help. And if somebody would just ask or fill us in or let us know, it helps us determine that.
Yeah. I was going to say, you just kind of triggered, my husband, it was probably 20 years ago, lost a job, and he was out of work for quite a while. And that was the hardest time to ask anybody for help.
Oh, I bet.
We tried and tried and tried to do everything ourselves, but eventually we got into a place where we had to ask. So sometimes whatever the situation, I think also ties into that assumption and that judgment piece.
And when you asked, did you get a good response?
It was mixed. And
okay.
actually we had people help us that we had no idea that they, even cared. It was people at church helped us out. So yeah, it was a mixed. Some people helped, some didn't.
And that's not. I would imagine that was pretty special as well for people that reached out that you didn't even know. You knew that, but you didn't know they would be willing to, or this family gave us half a steer. They were ranchers, and they gave us half a steer for the family. And we're like,
that's awesome.
That helped. That really helped.
Yeah, yeah.
There's also, I pulled up, that's what I was looking down for. I pulled up an article on things that we can do to ask better. So I thought it might be kind of fun to touch on one. One was do not apologize when you're asking.
Yeah. That's me.
That whole apologize, I'm sorry thing, that's a subject. We say I'm sorry is when, especially we say I'm sorry all the time. Let's just stop the I'm sorry, we say right there. Yeah, what else? What's else on there, Lisa?
It says express that you've tried to do it yourself. Now, I don't know that that's totally necessary, but in some circumstances that might actually apply really well. Yeah. I have to admit, a lot of people call me up like I'm some digital Google, and I'll say, did you look it up? And they're like, well, no, you're faster.
It's funny.
I'm like, well, you have to at least make an attempt to make the search.
Well, and sometimes the asking part too is an art. Like, I've done this before. now everybody's going to be like, I'll be like, do you have any suggestions? Or what's your opinion on that? Without not coming out directly, and I'll say, like you said, I've tried this, this, and this. Do you have any suggestions of what I can do? Knowing full well that there's a possibility that the specific person I'm asking can help me out, but I'm not like Trishelle is saying, sometimes our pride gets in the way, you know?
Oh, I think that's what keeps us from doing it. I mean, a lot of times overall, if we're not asking, it is our pride or that fear. And, even this works well in business when you're thinking about that. We're afraid to ask for the sale because we're too afraid they're going to say no, and we don't want to risk that fear of hurting our feelings, which, once you get to the point where you realize that it's not about you anyway, they're declining a service or a product, not you. It's not a slap in the face to you, but their brain goes down that other place, right?
As a mother, I can appreciate the next two. Express that you've followed past advice.
Yeah.
Okay, now what did you read there? I don't see that.
No, this isn't an article I've got.
In that article. I thought you were reading somebody's comment. Say that again.
Express that you followed past advice. I said, as a mother, I can appreciate some of these hints here. And then the other one is think about your timing. I have to admit that one kind of was making me laughing. I mean, if somebody's, in the middle of kneading dough, you probably might not want to ask them to come help you change the baby diaper or something like that. So just thoughtfulness and asking. Yeah.
One of our Facebook users here says, I say I'm sorry too much. I don't want to hurt other people's feelings.
Yeah.
And that, I so prefer the expression of I apologize. Like if there's something I really need to apologize for, as opposed to, I'm sorry about this. It's kind of a little different, but at the same point that it is easy. I'm not sure why we do the I'm sorry all the time, but you don't want to hurt their feelings. Like you said, that's true. But I think a lot of times, I don't know, I don't want to, disturb your time. Again, we're going back, it sort of is wasted words in general. I think, if we could just be a little more specific.
Well, when we're saying we're sorry, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this thought just kind of popped in my head. Is intentional living, do we say we're sorry if we're intentionally living? And so I think it kind of comes from not knowing, yes, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but to a certain extent, is it that we're not as intentional about what we're doing? Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm not sure I understand.
I'm not sure I understand when you're saying if we're intentionally living. So explain it better.
Well, intentional living is, in my head, maybe I've got the definition wrong, but to me, intentional living means that subconsciously, we've taught our brain subconsciously to know what we want in life and we're going for it.
Okay.
And so oftentimes when I've been that person who's been, I'm sorry, I haven't had that in my subconscious. And so when I am asking, I don't have the confidence and that focus to think that what I'm asking is okay.
I think the confidence, I was going to comment on that. It's the confidence piece to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I think, and then tie the assumptions and pride and
judgment and
everything, Yeah.
And so having more focus on my life and knowing where it's going helps me not to feel like I need to always, me personally, to need to be apologizing to people, because I feel like what I'm doing is.
And so maybe, I think you're right. And maybe looking at it coming from a different perspective of, rather than saying I'm sorry because we're worried about interrupting their time or their schedule, or we're basically, I think we're feeling less than if we're doing the I'm sorry thing. So maybe if we can shift that, say, I'm in the middle of something going on in my life, I'd like to ask you a question, kind of what you were saying, Laura. I'd like to ask you a question, or I'm looking at some options. I'm having trouble seeing it from both sides. Can you help me look at that from a different way, or approach it more from an actual question thing as opposed to, I think, because we feel bad, and depending on the circumstance, we feel bad about asking because of where we are. Okay. So we're not in a confident or a good place. So that's why we're asking oftentimes. So then we tend to put that up there. Whereas if we just, just say,
Another one on the list, which I hadn't even thought about, was when you're asking, follow back up with the person and let them know how they helped you.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's, that's the follow-up is super important. How many times have we helped people and then it's like, we say crickets. You don't hear from them. I'm like, okay, hopefully that helps,
Yeah. And I think that's a great way to also bridge friendships, because it's like, you come back. And then the final one, which I thought was kind of interesting, was be open to other people asking you. And that probably makes it so that you feel more confident about asking as well, because if you're receptive, then you know what it feels like to be asked. And so you're like, it's not that big a deal. And
yeah, that being more open in general, I think, makes it easier both ways. Whether you're the person asking or someone's asking you, then they realize it's, that you're open spirited to looking for that. Yeah.
Well, and then that brings up another point on, if somebody asks you for something, do you actually follow through, or, give them what they need? And it's kind of like that, like you were saying, do we like to be asked? I have with family and real close friends. I say, if there's anything you need, I don't care if you call me at 2:00 in the morning. I know you're calling me for a reason, and I will do what I can, the best I can to help. So they know that. And of course, thank God nobody calls me at 2:00 in the morning.
Well, and you bring up another great point, which was that, sometimes when people put forward that, oh, you can ask for any help you want, we've been burned where we go to ask, and then that person's like,
yeah,
why are you asking me? Well, you said to ask.
Yeah, there's nothing behind it, and you're like, are you just giving it words? Yeah.
And so now when we go to ask that other person, but see, my mindset is I treat everybody as an individual and not as a set. In other words, if this person didn't come through, then this person still got a clean slate from me, because otherwise we can start judging each other.
Oh gosh, yeah, that gets totally into judgment, and then you're in trouble. Yeah.
One of the other things I was thinking of with this topic is about asking our families about our heritage. Like, are there things in your family that you don't know, and they don't know that you don't know? So if you ask, like, I'm trying to be more intentional with my mother, and whenever I go see her, to have her tell me stories about her growing up and things like that, because
there's actually a list of prompts that you can ask for to your parents and stuff, that you can get things prompted. So rather than asking them like, what was high school like, you can ask, who was your first date, and and then, or what happened on your first date. And so then it starts to spur some of that. So if you guys ever need that list, because I teach genealogy on the side, but that you can get a list of prompts for those interviews, and they are so fun. We've done those interviews with our family, and they just spur, and you go through the whole ask session going, you did that? Oh my goodness, I didn't know. That was in our family.
And not that I'm going to tell you what to do, Delinda, but do it now before it's too late. Because I was going to say, we had my grandmother and my 2 great aunts lived into their mid-90s. And we didn't ask enough. We only know just like a few little bits and pieces. Mm-hmm. And that was on one side of the family. And then on the other side of the family, my grandmother wrote everything down, and they had a journal. Wow. And so we have this history on one side, but lost on the other. So,
and you know what? There's an app for this, actually. It's called Memories, and you can download it for free.
Okay.
And it literally, you can push record and it'll record in there. And then there's I believe there's an OCR conversion so that the recording can be converted to typing.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to ask Lisa, what's an OCR?
It's a program that converts speech to text.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm never afraid to ask Lisa.
That was a good ask.
Generous. You know, when I was in Mary Kay, it's like when I was training people coming up through their, you know, the car winners and wanted to be directors and stuff. In the first couple of years, I just was so happy to be the director and to give them all the answers and help them as much as I could. And after a while, I realized, you know what? They're not learning any of this stuff themselves by me giving them the answers, right? And so then I began, like Lisa said, by the way, well, so did you call the company about that, or did you da-da-da-da? And it's like, well, no, I just figured you'd know. Like, yeah, well, I do know, but you need to learn how to know, how to find the answers. And it was so funny. I had a like a student teacher in high school. Either it was so profound that the fact that I can actually remember something from high school is pretty amazing. Either a junior or senior, and he said, you don't have to know all the answers. You just need to know where to find them.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, that is, you know, major. So that took the weight off that I don't have to know every answer, but I know where to find them. You know, and Google.
It is amazing. There are a lot of people that don't, like you said, Lisa, they're coming to you for the answer, that don't like to research it or go find it. They'd rather take the easy way out.
Well, and I don't mind, because I mean, I do know that I have, like, God gave me a gift to research. So, I mean, I'm okay with that. But when my sisters sometimes come and ask me things that they could have easily, like I'll give you an example. My daughter Googled me. My daughter, that's actually the truth. She called me up and she says, Mom, can you look up how long it takes to get to the airport? And I'm like, you are kidding me, right?
Yep.
So it does get sometimes overly simplistic what they ask. And it says, one of our Facebook users says, my adult sons don't like me to ask them too many questions. Yeah, I'm sure. And then this one says, I ask Alexa a lot of things and she doesn't know. She always says, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, the one on the adult sons, now Alicia, my daughter, is very open with me now. It hasn't always been that way, but we're just so blessed. Thank the Lord. I mean, you know, only by the grace of God. And we have this wonderful relationship now. And my son's always been pretty open, but I kind of learned early with him that the ask I need to ask is, so are you talking to me? Do you want my opinion, or do you want me just to listen? You know, because I like to jump in to fix. I'm a fixer. You know, how can I help you? Well, did you think of this? And, you know, go through the whole mom kind of thing. So I learned to ask first, do you want my opinion in the first place? So, and I think in a lot of relationship things like that, if we just ask them, like, are you just venting? Do you need to just tell me? Or
well, that's a habit that I do when I get frustrated and I kind of dump it on my husband. I will try and remember to say, I just need you to listen, because of course, you know, guys want to fix everything too. And, you know, and then I'll be like, blah, 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 you know, thank you. And then I'll say, thank you for listening. Or sometimes I've done that with friends. I've texted them a whole bunch of stuff. And then at the end, I'm like, don't need any solutions. Thank you for listening. Smile face. See you later. But, you know, it's clear.
Yeah, that's true. And I think sometimes you know, right there, just, you know, I just need somebody to get this out, especially when I'm more that way when I'm creative. I'm getting these things and I've got all these ideas. It's like, okay, you know, we're not really sometimes looking for the answer as much as when we get it out of our head. And paper's good, but somehow when you talk it into the air, you're just talking to somebody, and husbands or, you know, friends or whoever. It helps. I mean, that in itself is the help, just to get it, you know, verbalize it. And sometimes when I'm saying that, I think that really doesn't make sense.
Well, and I always talk to myself. I'm sure people
Oh,
when I'm out and about are like, okay, lady, but I'm pretty easy to get along with. So I don't talk back. I listen.
I know Lisa talks a little bit to her chickens out there.
Yes,
Hey, there you go. I talk to my dog all the time.
Oh,
I do
gosh.
talk to my chickens actually.
I know. One morning you were telling me that you were, and I thought that is so cool. I would say, I just love this quote. This was President Kennedy, and I'm sure you're going to know what quote it is. But I haven't heard it out even in the news in a long, how sometimes they just throw things. Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. I just always thought that was a cool ask.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Again, so we're right at the top of the hour one more time. And so one last thought as far as ask from any perspective, it doesn't matter. So what about you, Lauren? One last comment?
It's probably just a rendition of everything. Don't be afraid, be confident, block the stories in your head about what their reaction is going to be. It's amazing. A lot people like to help people, and if you come from your heart, and if they know you too, they'll help, I think.
Yeah.
When you're asking, instead of thinking of it as a burden, think of it as a gift to have an opportunity to open the relationship.
That's a good way to think about it. That's excellent.
That is great, Lisa. Good insight there. Emily says, excellent insights, ladies. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, thank you for being here. So we always appreciate you guys that you join us on these Tuesday mornings, whether it's live or you're watching later with the replay. But we just so appreciate your time. You could be anywhere you wanted to be. You could still be in bed sleeping. I wouldn't be sleeping, but I wouldn't be up and dressed yet. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. God bless you, everybody. And remember that life is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice. So choose to ask for what you want and choose to open yourself so other people are also feel comfortable to ask you as well. So bye now. Have a great week and see you later. Bye.